Dark Souls is very unique, and there are many copycats, but there are only a few that do a great job at mirroring what Dark Souls does so well. Dark Souls is more than just brutally challenging combat. So how do I categorize what a Souls-like is? Like most Souls-like games, attacking and dodging uses up stamina, so the player will have to manage when to attack and when to dodge. Another important aspect are the iframes, or invincibility frames, meaning when you're dodging an incoming attack, you become invincible for a split second during that animation. One of the most favorite aspects of what From Software does with their titles are the cryptic narratives that are enlaced in the item descriptions. Trying to make sense of the narrative becomes its own metagame. I absolutely love it. While not required to round out this Souls-like pie, it's important to have an emotional and atmospheric soundtrack. Music and sound design not only fills any empty voids in a Souls-like, but it shapes the way we play. Hearing an eerie voice down a long path, or an unsettling music track playing while you face that boss again, and again, and again. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. Souls-like games essentially are Metroidvanias at their cores. Souls-like-oidvanias. Think about it. With only one true Souls-like title on the Nintendo Switch, with that being Dark Souls Remastered, other titles need to fill that empty dark void. So are there any games that have a great stamina-based combat with cryptic narrative? Let's get into it. Also, don't forget, if you like the content here, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to visit SwitchRPG.com, again, for all your RPG needs on the Nintendo Switch. If I had to describe Ender Lilies' Quietest of the Nights in as few words as possible, it would be hauntingly beautiful. Its gothic watercolor aesthetic will have you wondering why other games can't look like this. Although there are a few Souls-like aspects missing, like precise combat, and you're never really punished from dying, but I feel it does enough to make this list. You won't just be jumping from platform to platform, but you will be dodging and parrying and gathering cryptic narrative beats through item descriptions. Sound familiar? Your attacks will depend on which spirits you've collected and equipped throughout your adventure, tailoring your preferred build or playstyle. You can also further enhance Lily's abilities with relics that provide you that little extra push throughout the game. Ender Lily's soundtrack is fantastic, another aspect that shines the brightest. As I've said before, it's hauntingly beautiful, and the musical score is what does that. Forget what you remember about Death's Gambit's original release. After going back to the drawing board, the developers went through Death's Gambit with a fine-tooth comb and made significant improvements to create Death's Gambit Afterlife. While Death's Gambit Afterlife has the look of a typical Metroidvania, it's simply much deeper than that. It has varied build customization and a great soundtrack that moves it deeper into Souls-like territory. The overall look of Death's Gambit won't blow you away, but it certainly has its moment where the artwork looks really good, especially during some combat animations. The crafting system leaves a lot more to be desired. It's very bare bones, and the amount of recipes don't really make it worth assembling their respective weapons. The music is absolutely solid, and honestly could be one of the best aspects to Death's Gambit. Hellpoint has a similar playstyle to most Souls games. It's a stamina-based action RPG with good environmental exploration. You'll be leveling up your character at rifts, and to retrieve your essence, you will have to defeat a mirror copy of yourself to gain it all back. The developers have also added a jump mechanic, which makes platforming an essential tool for exploration. Hellpoint also has you discovering pieces of the narrative scattered throughout the environment through terminal logs and NPCs. Although the pacing of this information is a bit slow, that you may need to piece together the narrative with a second playthrough. When I played Hellpoint initially, there were a few bugs, texture loading issues, and crashes which were specific to the Switch version. Most of that has been ironed out, and a few annoyances are still in play, but the overall experience is still positive. The overall look and feel reminds me of a Dead Space / Dark Souls game, and to facilitate that is the soundtrack. It's haunting and peaceful at the same time. Developer support is pretty good too. There are events depending on the season and upcoming DLC, which I hope will come to the Nintendo Switch. There are some shortfalls, as I've said. There are a few quirky bugs that remain. Text is kind of too small in some cases, especially in handheld, and the animations just aren't quite there. Salt and Sanctuary is legit a side-scrolling Souls-like experience. Some terminology may be different, but any experienced Souls-like player will instantly feel right at home. Trust me, it's all there. One thing that I struggled with during my gameplay was the dodge mechanic. I'm pretty sure it was a me issue. Not having that 3D camera was likely my downfall, but don't let my experience get in the way. As I've mentioned earlier, Salt and Sanctuary hits on all the notes Souls-like players love, with one exception. Instead of using a basic stat point buy system, Salt and Sanctuary uses a sphere grid setup that the player can use to customize their own character. The player can also refund points if they don't like the way their character is progressing. Bonfires, or sanctuaries, can be manipulated so that it can provide different buffs every time you rest at one, so you can squeeze out every little advantage against the enemy as you can. Salt and Sanctuary nails the Dark Souls aesthetic. Where it falls short is in its soundtrack. While there is an attempt at making boss fights grandiose as per normal Souls-like, the looping audio track in Salt and Sanctuary becomes abundantly obvious when you're focusing in on that one aspect. Aside from its minimalistic design, Ashen has its moments where it can be visually stunning. And while Ashen may not be as brutal in terms of death to life ratio, the combat is more gratifying from a Souls-like perspective. With the optional assistance from an AI or real-life companion, you'll be exploring the likes of underground dungeons, progressing through its semi-open world. The hub town comes alive as you go through the game, and almost serves as its progression system. The visual muted tones along with the ethereal soundtrack are paired extremely well. While there may not be a memorable track from Ashen, you just feel it in your bones when you're playing. Ashen isn't as stat focused as Souls-like titles, so this makes it much more accessible to a broader audience. Here are some games that come really close, but don't really hit it on all aspects of what I'd consider a Souls-like. I hope you found this list helpful. Just goes to show you how difficult it can be to replicate what From Software has perfected. But let's also spotlight the creativity with these games. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and visit SwitchRPG.com for all your RPG needs on the Nintendo Switch.